Hello, I'm Cathy.
I'm Rachel.
And I'm Órla. Welcome to Luna Bubble Club.
Today we are talking about the Stormlight archive because I have finished Words of Radiance Part 1 and Part 2.
Hooray!
So in our last Stormlight archive video we talked about the Way of Kings. So now we're on book 2-3. And we're going to talk about book 2.
2.5.
2.5.
No, 2.1, 2.2.
Okay.
It's all 2.
It's all 2. This is all book 2. And we're going to talk about it.
Cathy, my first question is just overall, give me a general review of the book. 3 sentences, maximum.
Oh. I would say this is a slower pace than The Way of Kings. I got my wish fulfillment in seeing more of the Parshendi. I think overall it was... okay, the honest answer is some of it I slogged through and then the ending did kind of make it worth it, but it still didn't leave me as like... It didn't leave me the same way as Way of Kings did.
Okay.
So I felt like it's a little bit less of an enjoyable experience to Way of Kings, and if I wasn't comparing it to the Way of Kings, maybe I would have had a better time with it.
Okay. I also think that perhaps, so when I gave Cathy this book, I didn't give it her as a volume. I gave her the first half, and then she got to the end of the first half and was like, what? Is that it? Because I hadn't fully explained that it was two volumes. So it's perhaps my fault that your reading of it was a little less enjoyable than the first one. In our first Storm Archive video where we talked about the Way of Kings, you had some predictions or things that you wanted to know more about, questions, things like that. So you talked about wanting to know more about the Parshendi. You talked about wanting to know more about Dalinor's whole whatever with his wife that you can't remember the name of. You said that you wanted to know more about the things that Shallan was seeing. And also you wanted to know why Gavilar was killed or why the Parshendi claimed ownership of that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like this book satisfied those cravings?
I definitely really enjoyed all the Parshendi chapters and that world and that culture. I loved all that, spend all day with them, and I was really pleased to know more about them. And I guess we did hear more about kind of why they wanted Gavilar dead, because they thought he was bringing back the old gods and they don't want that. I'm still really...
Why do you think that is?
Well, yeah,
because they didn't really explain that.
No, I'm still not really clear on why they've turned their back on the old gods and exactly what that means and who the gods are who they don't want and how the gods differ to the other powerful forces we see about.
Okay.
But I'm kind of okay with that mystery. I kind of felt like I had enough answered that.
Okay.
I'm happy to explore more of that in the later books. Dalinor's past has been hinted to again, but we don't know. I just said to Rachel, so I'm assuming that Dalinar deleted the memories of his old wife, or had them deleted because he couldn't cope with the grief of losing her. But now I just suddenly thought, wouldn't it be cool? This is cool. Wouldn't it be cool if maybe he murdered her or caused her death, and he got rid of the memories because he can't cope with being guilty? It'd be really out of character for him.
But then wouldn't he be guilty for killing her?
Well, yeah, but what if he just removed all memory of
he
him
couldn't
doing
cope
something?
with that.
Yeah. What if it wasn't that he can't cope with the grief of losing her, but he couldn't cope with like the knowledge of himself? I don't really think that's what's going to happen, but I'm putting it out here in case it does.
Shallan and seeing things.
Oh yeah.
That was explained. Tell me about that.
Oh,
what is Shallan seeing?
What is Shallan seeing?
You don't remember, do you?
She's seeing. I read it. This is where it gets a bit metaphysical for me to understand. She can see when she goes into the other world and things are filled with beads.
No. So
the creatures.
The creatures, like she drew the simple-headed creatures behind the king, and then they were like chasing her down the streets of Kharbranth, and she was like, ah!
So they're the same kind of being that Patton is, yes, and they're part of this quantum realm.
So that was your thoughts on last book. I've tried to be a bit more structured in this video, so we're going to start with the prologue. Who were we in the POV for the prologue? Can you remember?
Yes.
What were we looking at?
She was arranging an assassination.
Yes. Can you remember of who?
No. Who was she getting assassinated?
Well, she eventually is like, actually, don't do this. But she was planning to have Aesudan assassinated, and she is Elacora's wife. So she was the wife of the prince at the time.
Okay.
This is all happening on the night of the king's assassination. Later on in the book, there's an interlude where we're in the POV of an Ardent who is in Kholinar, where Aesudan is. He's one of Aesudan's personal Ardents, and they are living very lavishly. And then this new Ardent comes.
Who wants to make everything right and look after the people.
Yeah, and they put loads of glyphs on the floor, and they're like, here is all the things that Aesudan is doing wrong. So do you have anything to... I'm just putting those 2 pieces of information there.
Yeah.
Yasna wanted her assassinated. Kholinar has descended into riots. We find out at the end of that interlude. Anything to say?
No, because I'm only just realising that those were about the same people.
Okay, well, now that you've realised that, that's something to stew on, isn't it?
Yes.
In the first book, you said that you didn't really like Kaladin's flashbacks because you said they didn't really tell you anything about Kaladin that you couldn't already pick up from his normal chapters.
Yeah.
In this book, who is the flashback character?
Shallan.
Shallan. What did you think about the flashbacks in this book? Were they any more effective?
Partly.
Tell me why.
So yeah, I think you do find out a bit more about how she came to where she is and her secret of having her own Sharblade.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Bit unfortunate that she seems to have used it on her own mother
Mm-hmm.
and then father.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean that was cool to discover about her. Again, I kind of felt like some of the flashbacks tread on ground that we'd already kind of discovered. But maybe if I was more interested in her brothers, I would have enjoyed it more. And I guess that maybe the brothers might come back into play more because they are having an impact. It's like one of them seems to be like an assassin himself now, or a soldier somebody's violent going around doing stuff.
Yeah, but he is.
Is he also dead? He's dead.
He's dead.
Aww.
Kaladin killed him.
Kaladin killed him, that was it. There's so much going on that it is really hard to connect. And then there's one who kind of gambles.
Mm-hmm.
And there was, it might be the same one. And one who was going to run away with another lady.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, different ones.
Different ones. So yeah, I feel like the brothers might come into play more, so it was kind of good to spend time with them.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe some of the flashbacks, again, I just felt like, I know this!
You also said in book 1 that you kind of didn't really like Shallan's chapters. How do you feel about Shallan in book 2?
She does still annoy me. I think the thing I think there's something about her dialogue that just doesn't ring true.
Mm-hmm.
I think the whole thing like, she's really witty and she does these plays on words all the time.
A lot of really cringy dad jokes, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a lot of cringy jokes. So I don't go like, oh, she's so witty and clever and sparky. I feel like I'm reading somebody trying to be clever.
Okay.
So her dialogue doesn't work, which I think I find it frustrating because so much of the other dialogue does work for me, but Shallan just seems to jar a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know why. She's just a little bit of an irritant to me. It might just be me being a bit unreasonable, but the way she wanders from like, oh yeah, I am gonna just meet with these secret assassins in this bit, and then like part way through the meeting be like, I'm in danger. But I get like she's nobody that she can trust, so there's nobody else she could go to, so why not fling herself from situation to situation? And she does handle herself well. I liked her earlier chapters of like getting from the shipwreck to the Shattered Plains and how she kind of had to use her wiles and all of that. I like that bit, but I think I like that more because it was less that she was deliberately running into perilous situations, but she just like had to survive. And she does have interesting powers. Like the whole thing of like using art and changing how she looks and disguises. Yeah, I like that. Just when she talks. Especially with Kaladin.
Yeah.
The whole thing when they were... I should have loved that chapter when they were going through like
the chasms.
The chasms. And I did like it. And I even liked like where they ended up in the relationship and where they started. All that felt right. It's just somehow when they talk together, it just doesn't sound right to me. But I did quite like the way she talked with Adeline.
How do you feel about those three? Do you feel like there's a love triangle, or do you feel like everything is actually quite settled?
Yeah, I feel like it does have potential for love triangles.
How would you feel about that?
I really don't like love triangles. I'm going to be so grumpy in this video. So at the moment, I'm really happy with how it plays out. I feel like Kaladin and Shallan have like this grudging mutual respect for one another. And I feel like Adeline and Shallan have really good chemistry. And Adeline and Kaladin have this growing grudging respect for one another. So I really like it as it is now. But I'm worried that we're only in book 2 and that could change.
Okay.
But I'm really happy with how it is now and I hope it gets left alone.
I was watching through our previous video before coming to film this, and you said with the way that things were left at the end of book 1, Dalinar could be easy pickings. Do you have any thoughts on that throughout book 2?
I think Dalinar's situation is really interesting to read, and his chapters like some of my favourite, the things that he has to negotiate. So I like that his position in the army is vulnerable and in society is vulnerable, and he holds on to it through like grit and intelligence and sticking to his guns, and that does pay off in the final chapters in the battle scenes. Like he proves his worth there. And he learns some stuff too, so he doesn't get it all right. So when like they said, there's a bit where he has to learn like he can't keep treating the High Princes with scorn all the time, even if they deserve it. Because like they're not going to follow him. He has to show some respect back, and when that pays off in the final battle scenes, I thought that worked really well. One
One of the things that Dalinar does deal with this book is Amaram. Actually, Amaram is kind of a new character that we're introduced to in this book, because he's mentioned in the first book and we see him in a flashback. But what did you think about Amaram as a character?
Oh, like I hate him. I hate him. But that's exactly how I'm meant to feel.
Yeah.
So he's a really good character to have into here, and he's an enjoyable person to have there, and he does provide a really good dilemma for Dalinar and for Kaladin too. So yeah, I'm glad. I was really pleased with the way it played out as a whole, and it was really frustrating when like he is this awful person, but there wasn't evidence for it. So yeah, I loved all that storyline. I can't remember what happened to him at the end. He doesn't die.
They're about to go on their journey into the Sharplanes. Amaram is there, Kaladin comes to see them off. Dalinar's like, let's go and sort out this all this debacle between you and Kaladin. They go over, Dalinar's like, somebody else want an apology. And Kaladin's like, I'm just gonna make me apologise, I hate this guy so much. And then Kaladin starts apologising, and Dalin goes, well son, what about Amaram? And then he makes Amaram apologise, he takes the cake off him, and then Amaram disappears. But then we get Amaram's point of view. Amaram is still in the game. He has such conviction that what he is doing is the right thing.
Yeah.
That he can apologise to Kaladin for the way he treated him, because the way that he treated him was wrong, but he doesn't regret it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and that's very much like Sadie's point of view as well. Like, I think there is a theme in so that once you have all this power, your view of what's right and wrong does get skewered, because you feel like you're holding the whole world, that individuals don't matter as much, and it keeps examining what that means. And can that be true? Can you be a good person overall if you sacrifice individuals to evil because you think it suits a better purpose overall? And that's what Kaladin's really battling with in this book.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think Kaladin does go on an interesting journey.
These books are obviously at Shallan's flashback point of view, so I was trying to pull specific things that Shallan goes through. So one of the things that Shallan is dealing with is that she has to provide truths to Pattern to get her powers. So I think with Sadeas and Amaram, Sadeas is completely open in how much of a scumbag he is, whereas Amaram puts on this front of nobility. I thought that was innocent.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's true, I guess. And maybe that's why Amaram had Dalinar fooled for so long, because he's still trying to appeal to that noble sense whilst knowing he's not.
Kaladin struggles with whether it's right to kill someone for the greater good, and I think that is one of Kaladin's main things in the book, and the whole element of justice and what is right, and all that's mixed up with Moash and Rashon and Amaram and Elhokar. Do you have anything about that?
Yeah, I have to admit, when we were going through it, like it starts well, and then I think during the length of the book, I got a bit bored of this plot line. I guess because for me, there's only sometimes you can see a character go like, should I not? I don't know what to do, and I got a bit fed up. But when Kaladin gets to the revelation of, but the king is like somebody else's brother, because like Kaladin's brother got sacrificed for the greater good of the battle, which I remember in the first book said, I'm bored of these flashbacks. I already knew that happened, and you're like, it is important.
It's important.
So this time out when Kaladin gets just like, as you know, his younger brother was sacrificed in a battle so somebody else could win, that would be like what he was doing to the king, you know, because to Dalinar, that's the person he wants to protect and love and look after. So Kaladin's like, yeah, no, every person needs that same level of care. And I like that the king at times was just showing signs that he knows he's failing as a king.
Yeah. And I think he goes to Kaladin and he says something like, how are you so, like, help me be good, or something like that.
Yeah.
Whenever I read this book, at the beginning, when Moash is like, Kaladin, we have to kill the king, I'm sat there thinking, chill out, Moash, it's not that deep. There are better ways that you can get justice. But then, after the duel, the White Spider and Cage duel, when Ellicar's like, arrest him! Get him from prison! I'm like, absolutely not! Regicide! Kill the king! Kill the king!
Get rid. But again, I feel like Kaladin's like storyline, because we know that Amram's guilty, and yet Kaladin can't get justice for quite a bit of the book through the normal means. So you're like, yeah, Moash also, there is no justice that he can get. So every point of view is kind of understandable.
How do you feel about Moash?
Like, I get where he's coming from, and I feel sorry for him, and that he's probably stuck on a course now that will be very hard to turn back from.
One last thing about Amaram. Shallan gets given a task from the Ghostbloods to go and spy on Amaram and get into his hidden room, but she's given a specific instruction that she mustn't harm him because Amaram belongs to someone else or something. What do you think? What do you make of that?
Maybe he belongs to the king, who is mad on some days and a genius on other days.
Okay.
Because they seem to have a very far-reaching conspiracy.
Okay.
So maybe he belongs to them.
Interesting. Another of the things that Shallan deals with in this book, or that is related to Shallan in this book, is the whole art of soul casting. What is soul casting?
Transforming things.
Yes.
No, transforming things.
So,
and she could do it without a soul caster.
yes, because she is a soul caster.
This is still stuff that I know is explained. I just go straight
Who
over
else
my
is a soul
head.
caster?
Yasna.
Correct. So soul casting is where you give Stormlight to the soul, the essence of an object, to transform it into something else.
Yeah.
So
And you have to persuade it.
yeah,
You can't just force it.
How
you
can
have to.
you persuade an object?
because you talk to its soul. Everything has a soul
Yeah.
in this book.
How can the camera have itself?
Because it's magic.
Magic. So I do get, like, in the beginning, Shallan has to persuade the ship to sink itself. So I did understand the concept in that chapter.
Yeah.
And then I read the rest of the book and forgot about it. But it did make sense in that chapter.
That bit's so sweet when she's
Yeah.
talking to the ship, and the ship's, I'm a ship. This is what I do. I've been a ship for ages, and she pleads for its connection to the crew, and she says this is the only way that you can save them. It's one last act of service. I just think that's really cute.
I really like that bit too.
So soul casting is all about change. So
Yeah.
I thought, let's think about some characters that change
Ooh.
through the novel.
Okay.
Do you have any? Who do you think changes in the novel?
Well, Dalinar changes his leadership approach to the High Princess, which we talked about. Kaladin goes through some changes. Although I guess by the end he's kind of changed back to his good
Yeah, he
old
kind of
normal
has,
self.
hasn't he?
But he does go through like a thing of changing directions, and with a bit where he loses his powers. And Syl changes, like
Syl does change.
so the more Kaladin leads to doing the wrong thing, she loses more of her individuality and her intelligence and her knowledge, and then when she comes back she's even more powerful than ever.
While we're talking about Syl, let's talk about Patton. Because Patton at the beginning,
I love Patton.
he's just, tell me about Patton. What?
Patton's adorable.
He is adorable. He's so cute.
Like Syl, he's kind of gets on a bit of a journey and finds out more stuff. His understanding of truth and lies. And I like the way he just goes, a lot of thinking things through. And that Patton's playfulness. And I love Patton. I want one.
He also becomes, like at the beginning he just buzzes and he's like, and then throughout the novel he changes. Shallan changes him to become more understanding of the world.
Yeah.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Similar to Syl.
Yeah, and he's a good sidekick. Like he puts voices on for Charlotte and stuff.
We see in this book, and a little bit in the first book, the relationship between the Radiant Spren and their Radiance. What do you think of that? What do you think that means?
Yeah, I think this is another thing that it's explained in part, and then I get it for a moment, and then I forget it.
Okay.
But it seems to be tied again to honour and kind of inner morality. I'm not sure if that's just Kaladin and Syl, because I know he's meant to be an oath honour thing. So yeah, and Patton's very keen on truth. He wants truth, and kind of Syl wants honour. So they're kind of tied to virtues, I guess, as well as abilities.
Okay.
But I still don't really understand it.
Okay.
But I'm kind of okay with not understanding it. Oh, and Zeph.
Yep.
He goes through some changes. He's barely alive by the end of it. I felt a little bit frustrated at his ending, because at the very, very end, he ends up swearing service, I think, to the police guy who got the little girl thief. What's she called?
Lift.
Lift. I didn't remember. I keep wanting to say Lake, and it's not Lake, it's Lift.
Why is she called Lift?
Because she's a thief. That's what I thought.
Yeah, probably, yeah.
Things. So I kind of thought, I wish Zeph had a bit more time to dwell in the uncertainty of life, because he kind of realised that he'd been forced to believe things that weren't true. He was then open to feeling the guilt of his actions, because actually he could have chosen differently. He kind of believed he didn't have a choice, but it turns out he did. And then immediately he finds a way not to have choices again. Or he's given an opportunity to. And I guess that makes sense, because why would you want to have a choice if you have to live with the guilt? But I would have liked to see him wrestle with that for a bit longer.
This is it. I wasn't actually going to talk about this. I toyed with talking about culpability and choice and things like that. But since you mentioned Sveth and brought it up, so Sveth, I can't say his name. I'm just going Seth. Seth finds out that Kaladin is a Radiant, and hence his whole belief system has been a lie.
Yeah.
The reason that he's been committing these atrocities is false. He hasn't actually been bound by this Oathstone, because it has been a lie that tied him to it. But is he culpable, responsible for his actions that he committed when he believed that he was being bound to his Oathstone, even though he wasn't? Do you know what I mean? How much responsibility can Sveth be given when he believed that he was beholden to the Oathstone?
Yeah, I don't know. That is a really... Yeah, that is a really interesting thought. And I think if the last chapter hadn't been put on, I kind of would have said maybe he can't, because he truly, truly believed he had no choice. And he had to do what it says. But the fact that he's immediately sworn himself and his will to another being of dubious morality, straight away kind of says that, well, when he does have a choice, he chooses not to have a choice.
Yeah.
So maybe if he had wanted to, he could have asserted his own will more, but he kind of, a part of him is choosing to go with a belief system that frees his
removes
own.
him of any...
Yeah. Maybe.
Adeline.
Does he change? He murders at the end of the
He does
book.
murder at the end of the book. What do you think the lasting impacts of that will be?
I think at some point Dalina will find out, and that will cause a huge rift between them.
Between father and son.
Yeah, because Dalina will feel obliged to carry out justice.
Ooh.
Yeah, I think Dalina will feel obliged to carry out justice, and Adeline will have to run away or oppose him. But at the same time, I'm very anti-murder as a position in general. But Sadius did commit treason. What he did in The Way of Kings actively killed thousands of their own soldiers. That is treason and sabotage, so he did deserve to die. But again, we're back to the core questions of the novel.
Is death justice, though?
Is death justice, yeah. not really. No.
Interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, that's gonna have consequences. And again, that's one of the, I think this is a good conflict in the novel to have, because Adeline, from his point of view, you can see exactly why this has happened.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if he's changed that much throughout.
Mm-hmm. I think it's not so much that Adeline changes. I think the reader, well, at least my understanding of Adeline changes. Does it? No, I always love Adeline.
Yeah, I like him too. I think it's a bit clumsily done, but even like his romance subplot, like the idea that he kept going through girls and ditching them, but it seemed to be more like, instead of him being like a proper womanizer, he's just a highly eligible bachelor who's not that particularly interested in keeping a relationship anyway. So rather than somebody's like, oh yeah, I'm going to date this girl,
Yeah.
he's just in a
He's
position
really
where
bad at it.
He's just really bad
at it.
and perhaps until Sharon comes along, not really that interested in being in a relationship, aside from like, oh, I'm meant to be in a relationship because I'm a prince.
And I think maybe because Shallan isn't from the court, Shallan doesn't have, like, Shallan knows that Adeline's had a messy history of all these women, but I think maybe the women that he has been with before aren't expecting it to go far, really, so they don't really care enough to actually try. Yeah. Poor Adeline.
I know. You know, like at the end of the Way of Kings, I said, like, I want more of Pashendi because I'm interested. I want more of Renarin because I'm interested. Like, he's kind of stayed on the periphery of the story, but he's really intriguing. Like, he has a lot of pain, and he's really trying hard, and he panics, and I'd like to know more of him.
He's just a baby.
He's just a baby.
He's just a baby.
Who's a baby?
A prince in the story.
Is he actually a baby?
No, he's like 20 years old. But he's a baby to me.
Yeah. Pashendi! Let's talk about the Pashendi!
Okay, we'll talk about the Pashendi. So in the interludes, we had a lot of Ishonai points of view.
Yeah.
And then we had a lot of them at the end as well. So we learnt more about their culture, the listeners. Relaine was there. That's Shen, the bridge.
Oh yeah.
Pashendi.
Oh, how cool is Shen?
Yeah.
Because, like, he was already a bit interesting in the first book, and then now he was a spy.
Yeah.
But now
he came back.
Because his people have been, like, completely changed once he's been gone. So he's got divided loyalty. So yeah, I definitely want to see more of him.
Do you think that obviously Bridge 4 do try and incorporate him into their number? Do you think if they hadn't done that, he would have come back?
Oh no, I don't.
Okay.
I think Bridge 4 became a way of people who were completely on the edge to be given, like, humanity again. And I think that's going to be really important.
Okay.
I think that's what made The Way of Kings so strong, is that it was about those rejects and their survival and kind of reclaiming their personhood again. So I love that that's having far-reaching consequences, and I hope that continues.
Okay.
But I loved all the Pashendi. I loved the way that they could completely change body shape depending on what kind of work they were doing, and the way their society was set up. And I'm already devastated that it's under threat. Well, it's been changed.
Practically gone now.
And even though, like, I can't remember what the main
Ishonai.
Like, I don't like what she's done, but I understand why she's doing it. But it feels like her strings are being pulled. I'm not sure by a sister or by something else. That's terrifying.
In her later point of views, we see her struggling with that little beat inside of her that she's pushing it down to ignore it, isn't she?
Yeah.
That alarm at all the actions that she's doing.
I'm really interested to see how that plays out, and when they're featured in the big battle, and now that there's two storms crashing around the world, and and all the Pashendi, like the ones that are Parchment, are they going to be forced into this new form when the storm goes around? I feel like that's the threat of what they think is going to happen. But it seemed like the first group, though, like they had to choose to become the form. So I don't know, can that be forced on people who are just going to happen to be caught out in this new storm?
That's a good question.
I don't know. This is why I do want to read the next book. So you see, like, I started by saying like there was a lot that I felt like at times the book dragged, but there was so much good in it as well.
While we're talking about the interludes, talk to me about Lift.
Lift again was a chapter I felt like went on too long.
Uh-huh.
I think this is like a personal preference, but I feel like with heist storylines or any storyline where somebody's trying to break into somewhere or sneak into somewhere, at the end they're either going to get the thing or they're not going to get the thing. They're going to get away without getting caught or they're going to get caught. And there's only like so many things that can happen. So I kind of find a lot of the build up to it tedious. And I have a bit of a thing of like, in fantasy books, I think we sometimes spend too long in corridors. Like, we talked about this when we read through like Wheel of Time. I said like, there's so much description of the different corridors and different places that I bet you could paint different pictures of corridors in Wheel of Time and fans would be able to tell you where that is just from the corridor. Which is, I guess, cool on one hand, but I get a bit bored. So I felt like the Live chapter was too long to get to the point. But I did feel like the ending's got a cool twist in that like her little co-host ends up being like the prince because that's how that place works. It was alright, but it didn't speak to me.
I am going to briefly touch on the epigraphs.
Okay.
We're going to pick one epigraph to look at.
The desolation needs no usher, it can and will sit where it wishes, and the signs are obvious that the spren anticipate it doing so soon. Okay. So that seems to imply that the desolation or the bad things that happen aren't necessarily caused by what's going on, it just happens anyway, but there are signs that it's coming. One is almost certainly a traitor to the others.
What do you think that's about?
Who is a traitor to the others? I don't know.
Last video, you said your favourite character was Kaladin. Does that still stand, or has your favourite character changed?
It's between Kaladin and Dalinar.
Okay.
I really like both of them. I think Dalinar had a slightly more interesting. Was it more interesting? He didn't mope about as much as Kaladin did this time. Kaladin had a bit of moping to do in this. Justified moping, but I just don't enjoy moping that much. So maybe Dalinar has the edge for this one.
Okay. Last video you said that my favourite character was, well, you predicted that my favourite character was Syl.
Yeah.
Do you stand by that?
No.
Who do you think my favourite character is?
The younger prince.
Renarin?
Yeah.
Really?
He's a baby.
He's a baby. Do you know who else I think is baby though? The older prince. I love Adeline Cole. I want to give him a
yeah, I really like Adeline too. And the whole duel thing, which we're not even talking about, that was
and
really
the fact
cool.
that he put himself in prison because he did not agree with Kaladin being in prison. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. The fact that they were fighting before that and then there's this mutual understanding and respect between them afterwards.
Yeah.
Oh, they do Adeline does change.
He does. Although, you see again, like, I don't know if it does change or if he's just revealed.
Yeah.
If you know what I mean,
Ooh.
like, is this always who he is? But when the circumstances align, then he shows himself. Like, before, because the war wasn't going anywhere, he didn't have to do anything noble.
Yeah.
But when nobility's called for, like, who he is comes forth. So yeah, I really like Adeline too.
Okay. You thought that the first book had a satisfying conclusion because you felt like some of the plots were concluded, but there were other things lying on. How did you feel about the ending of this one?
I think it was good. And again, I think this is more of a me problem than the book problem. I hadn't been that invested in the whole like secret city thing, and they kept bringing it up, and I was like, come on.
I don't care.
And then after the final show, I was like, we're in the secret city. I'm like, oh, I probably should have paid more attention to this, and I would like care more. So I'm kind of glad that we seem to be moving on from the war in the Shattered Plains, and the final big battle was really cool, and like trying to get out of the place, and the two storms raging.
That's very intense.
It was intense. And it was cool. I don't think it had quite the emotional payoff for me as the end of book one did. Because obviously book one you had the whole of like Bridge 4 getting free and that's always going to be hard to beat. So I think that's more about like just how good Way of Kings was than anything else. So yeah, like it was good, but not as emotional for me. But and the thing about Adeline killing Stadius at the end, like definitely makes me want to read more.
Oh, we never talked about Yasna dying, but not actually dying. Do you have anything to say on that?
I didn't really believe she was dead.
Yeah, no,
so
I
I
did
felt
that when I first read it.
she was nobody. She's too cool a character to kill off that easily.
What do you think she was up to?
Oh, another secret research.
Do you have any predictions for going forward?
No, I'm a bit stuck because I really actually don't understand what the significance of this lost city is. So I think that's a bit stuck. I'm aware that lots of countries are in turmoil because of what Seth has done.
Mm-hmm.
So I really don't know what's going on to be able
And
to
I said,
predict.
why are we calling him Seth now?
Because can't
It's too
pronounce
hard.
his
It's too hard to
name.
pronounce.
So what do I think is going to happen? I think Adeline and Dallina are going to fall out.
Okay.
Because of the whole murder thing.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that's going to be revealed to Dallina at a really inconvenient time, and then he's going to have to like instantly turn against his son, and that's going to be really traumatic. I'm not looking forward to it. I think they'll try and find more Knights of Radiance.
Uh-huh.
I think maybe the king will start trying to reform himself.
Okay.
Those are my predictions.
Okay. You want to read the next one?
Yes, please.
So, there is a novella that happens between Words of Radiance and Oathbringer, which is what I've brought today.
Oh, okay.
Now, you don't have to read it. It's in this anthology. You don't have to read all this book. The novella
That's not a novella.
the novella is this much.
Okay.
It's about Lift and what...
Oh, I don't want to read it.
It's not a heist one though. It's more of like a... you don't have to read it. I'll bring you Oathbringer next time. It's fine. I'll let you know anything important.
Yeah, I'll read Oathbringer, and then if I really feel like I need more of Lift, I'll come back.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just found her a little bit boring.
That's fine. That's fine. Do you know, she's one of Brandon's favourite characters to write.
Bless him.
But she's just a bit frustrating.
I feel like
She
had quite a long chapter. It felt like a long chapter.
It is a long chapter, the Lift one.
And again, I think this is perhaps a little bit of my criticism of Brandon's writing. And sometimes it's praise as well. Like, I got her character really early on.
Mm-hmm.
And what she was about, what her power was, and kind of a bit of her character. So I got it. And then I just felt like I kept being told about it over and over again. And I got it early on.
Okay.
So, but I think if you really enjoy her, then like you'll really like all that.
That's fine. So I will return with Oathbringer at another date, but I'll bring both volumes and then you can start reading. Does the word Oathbringer mean anything to you?
No. Okay, so I feel like we have talked our socks off about Words of Radiance. This was a really fun video, and the more that we've talked about the books, the warmer I feel towards them.
The more hungry I get.
We have filmed past schedule, and we've now ventured into Órla's lunchtime, and
Yeah,
she's
I feel
getting
a bit
quite
guilty
hungry.
about that. She's getting angry.
Don't feel. We went out for breakfast together this morning. She's had a good cooked breakfast. She's fine. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video too, and digging into the Words of Radiance. If you have any comments or thoughts or theories about this book, please put them down below.
No spoilers.
No spoilers, because obviously I've got more to read.
Spoilers.
No. Well, I guess you can spoil Words of Radiance because this video has done that thoroughly.
Yeah.
But no spoilers for Beyond. We release new videos every Friday, so come back and see what we've got, and we'll see you next time.
Oh, I'm thinking about the Sander lunch in Oathbringer. Oh my gosh, you're gonna love it. You're gonna love it.
Bye!
It is now 10 minutes past lunchtime.
We've got a talking clock in the room.
I question the premise of the prophecy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's... Do you know, I just feel like we need to get more of your thoughts on Words of Radiance when we do these, because it's all of mine as like a beginner, but it's probably interesting to hear your perspective.
Why Spy Uncaged lives in my head rent free. Rent free. Honor is dead, but I'll see what I can do. Kaladin, you're so dramatic.